What is going on, everybody? Today we're taking a question from a viewer. Now, this is a pretty interesting one and one that we haven't talked about at all on this channel. I think it's something you definitely want to stick around for. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that stuff. Right now, about 60% of the watchers are all people who've never seen this content before, which is super cool. So let's keep on spreading the news about hair systems, hair loss, all this kind of stuff, and destigmatize it. All right, so today's question and conversation really comes from a man I'm gonna call Luke. He wanted to stay anonymous. Now, Luke and I were talking a little bit about a condition that he has. And he has a pretty aggressive, what he calls aggressive scalp condition that's exacerbating male pattern baldness along with it. Now, I asked him what it is, and he said it was seborrhoeic dermatitis. Now, before we get into that, because that's a completely different issue, let's go over some surface level stuff. So he asked me a couple questions. He said, like you, I am extremely into sports and work out several times a day. What's been the best material you have found to deal with this? Next question, do you do all the maintenance yourself? How difficult was the learning curve? And number 3, do your friends, family, partners know? This is one thing I've been thinking about a lot. If I were to start using a hair system, it would be purely for myself. And it's possible people wouldn't notice the transition. I don't want to be eaten alive thinking I'm a lie though. You know what I mean? What's your experience here? So we're going to go through these questions right here and then talk a little bit about seborrhoeic dermatitis and what my recommendations are, okay? So I really think the thing that you're looking at here is a amalgamation of a couple issues. Lucky for you, I have my handy dandy chart. Okay, so right here, if you can see, I have a XY axis with an L and a B. This stands for longevity. This stands for breathability. Okay, not believability, breathability. And this is really the two factors that I think about inside of sports and what are important to consider. So let's start breaking down what common systems are that you can get. So let's talk about monofilament, right? Longevity and breathability are going to be fairly high. It's a mesh type unit, and it is extremely rigid. In fact, it has some structure to the unit. So longevity is going to be high, breathability is going to be high. It's going to be probably right in here. Now, the other factor we're not considering, because this isn't a three-dimensional chart, we could make it, but it's believability. Monofilament is not going to be very believable, especially the hairline. It's designed for maximum wear, for durability, and also breathability. Now, so let's call this MF for monofilament. Now let's take polyurethane, or the thin skin. So as far as longevity, it's not going to last the longest. The thin skins, there's a very thin membrane. They don't last forever. They can rip, all of this kind of stuff. And if you're doing hyper aggressive sports, that's, there's a chance, right? If it's not contact, that makes it less of an issue. But here's the issue with poly thin skin. There's no breathability. It is so god-awful hot, especially if you live in Florida like me, and you mentioned that you do. So poly thin skin is going to be kind of like down in this region here as far as durability and its breathability. Not something that I personally am going to recommend to you in this situation. Then you have the things like French and Swiss lace, right? So they're both extremely breathable, so we're going to put them over in this area right here. But Swiss lace, as far as this longevity, is probably going to last down in this region, maybe even less, probably even less than the poly thin skin. And then we have French lace, which is going to be probably up in here. Now, I know this is a very scientific chart and it gives you numbers as far as how many months and the breathability quotient and things like this, but so we're looking at monofilament being the most. So we're looking at monofilament being very breathable, having a lot of longevity, but it's not very believable. So we see French lace having the breathability and also longevity, but less believability. But we come down to the Swiss lace down here, lots of breathability and not much longevity, but it's going to be the most believable. Then we come to polyurethane. It's not going to last forever, and it's definitely not going to be breathable. So that is what I would recommend least to you in this situation. Next, the question came up, do your friends, family, and partners know? This is one thing I've been thinking about. If I were to start using a hair system, it'd be for me, and people probably wouldn't notice the transition. I don't want to feel like I'm living a lie. So I think this is a great question right here, and I think it's one that we need to talk about more on the channel. I don't think that you have to be as outward and as in front of the world as I am with hair systems and content and having people know your story. That is something that I have chosen to do. There's people all over this community that have done that. There's people all over this community that have done a range of options. People that don't tell anyone and have never told anybody. There's people who have told absolutely everyone and they just don't care. The fact that you're asking the question, you don't want to feel like you're living a lie. Well, you're not living a lie. I mean, you're just using a prosthetic, and some women wear water bras or some get cosmetic surgery. These aren't lies. They're just choices that you've made. You should never feel as if you have to tell someone about your hair system. It's just not the way it is. That's your choice. If someone wants to know and you want to entertain them, that's great. But the chances are no one is ever really going to know. No one's ever going to really find out. People start to ask, well, what about romantic partners, especially because they're probably going to be the ones that are closest to you physically and intimately. I think that, why would you want to keep a secret like that away from somebody? Fear of rejection is really the only thing at that point that people start to consider as being a reason why they wouldn't want to tell someone. And it comes down to this, right? If you go on a date, if you meet a lovely senorita on like Tinder or Bumble or Hinge, or you meet them in real life, right? You get to know them and you get past that first phase of like, hey, I kind of like your personality, you like me, like we want to jam and hang out and stuff like that. I would say at some point, why don't you tell someone that? It can probably be something that can kind of pull you guys closer together, because you're going to feel more vulnerable with her. You're going to be like, hey, or him, you're going to say, hey, this is something that I've got going on. I hope that isn't too big of an issue for you. And once they accept you for who you are, which is going to happen probably 99% of the times, you move on and you just go on with your life. And this is a person who knows and they still like you for who you are, which just further goes to show that people don't 100% care just about your appearance. People want to know you as a person. People want to enjoy you as a person, and having a beautiful personality and confidence is the number one thing that you can do. Confidence is so severely underrated, and women, men love a person who is confident. If you're confident enough, and this is why I am choosing to just tell people about what I'm going through, is people love somebody that can own up to the things that they're struggling with in their life or the things that they have dealt with. It makes you more human. Humans are not perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And this is one of my ways to just expose myself to the world and be like, hey guys, this is who I am. You either like it or you don't. And I haven't lost any friends because of it. In fact, friends have respected me for making the choice and being vulnerable and going out there and trying to solve something. And now look at how I'm helping people. It's really awesome. But I tell you what, man, that shame, if you feel like you're hiding a secret, can eat you alive. If confidence and vulnerability can set you free, shame will lock you in a prison and hold you there for the rest of your life. And that is not something that I'm okay with. I believe in us becoming stronger men and better men and liberating ourselves from the things that we think that we have to be. So let's talk a little bit about the seborrhoeic dermatitis issue. From my research, seborrhoeic dermatitis is a superficial fungus disease. I hate using that word. Now, doctors don't know exactly what is the root cause or what is the one cause, and it's not something that's generally solvable. It's also a very common thing. But they say that stress, your genetics, a yeast on the skin that usually causes no problems for people, certain medications, cold, dry weather are all possible causes that kind of contribute to seborrhoeic dermatitis and flare-ups. It's not something that we found a cure for, but there is ways to control it. I recommend always trying to solve these things as organically as possible, or trying to do it through general wellness, right? My first question to you is, are you eating right? You've got to get your nutrition on lock, eat the right type of diet, which we've talked about. I recommend kind of going with like the TB12 or the Tom Brady diet, which is basically revolving around creating an alkaline environment inside of the body. From the research that I've done about seborrhoeic dermatitis, this seems to kind of follow suit with that knowledge. Now, that being said, seborrhoeic dermatitis is not caused by a unclean scalp. It's not caused by anything like that. What it's caused by is these other factors, right? So one of the ways to treat it, it says, is to kind of have shampoos that are designed for dandruff that have certain ingredients in them, like coal tar and a whole bunch of other stuff that you can research. So what I recommend is a couple things. Here's my recommendation. Once again, I'm not a dermatologist. One, make sure that you're using these shampoos. Number one. Number two, get your diet and everything else under control. Get your diet, your stress, your sleep, all of this stuff under control, because this is all exacerbating your condition. Number three, you're probably not going to be wanting to use a polyurethane thin skin, one for your lifestyle, but also specifically for this seborrhoeic dermatitis. You're going to want something that's breathable, that the shampoo can actually get through and touch the scalp, which in my opinion is probably a better choice overall for everybody, right? So you want to look at French lace or Swiss lace probably. Of course, with you being interested in sports and working out a lot, if you're into contact sports, I would consider the French lace, maybe something like what I have, which is the French lace and polyurethane border. There's not a ton of polyurethane there, which might be okay for your condition, I don't know, but this is something that you're going to have to address. You'll also not want to apply adhesive to your entire scalp, right? If you have areas that are breaking out, I probably wouldn't recommend putting adhesive on it. Those are areas that I would avoid at all costs, and I would try to work the adhesive around them if possible. What I'd recommend is probably doing what I'm doing, using tape on the perimeter if there's none of those flare-ups happening in those areas. Anyways, guys, I hope this information is helpful for you. Just because you have a skin condition or a scalp condition does not mean that you can't wear a hair system. You just got to take some steps. Like this gentleman right here, just make sure that you're using the proper shampoos, get your diet on lock, and get the right type of hair system. All right? Please, once again, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this video with anybody that you know that is dealing with these issues and wants some help. You can either reach out to me here on Instagram, which I'll put my tag right here in the video, and I'll talk to you soon.